Hey guys, it's me, Kaylin. Welcome back to another wrap-up. This month in June, I read 15 books, and I actually DNF'd a book, so we have a lot to discuss. Let's just get right into it. The first book I read in the month of June is I'd Tell You I Love You, But Then I'd Have to Kill You by Allie Carter. I rated this 3.5 stars. It was pretty good. Okay, I don't really know how to describe this book besides that it's like this group of girls, they go to a spy school, and the main character falls in love with a boy from the neighboring town, and no one knows that it's a spy school because it's like top secret FBI type stuff. So they think, the people in the town think that it's just like a snotty rich girl school. So she has to hide who she is from him, which I think we've known from other books that starting a relationship on lying and hiding things from your partner is not good. So there's that. This book it was good. I enjoyed it, but I would have rated it a 4, but I bumped it down to a 3.5 because there was like mention of anorexia in here, and it was like never really discussed per se. I mentioned this in my May haul because I picked this up in May, but like one of the main characters says that she only eats 800 calories a day, which when you're like a kid you don't know if that's a lot or not, but now that I'm like a grown up, sadly, 800 calories is not a lot, so that's yikes. And it was never discussed. And then there's another scene where the main character talks about how she had like cake for dessert or something, and then she ends up having to walk home, and she's like, oh, it's fine because I can just walk off that cake that I ate. But like, okay, why are you making, like, it was good cake, I'm assuming, so like why are you feeling bad about it? I don't know. So there's that. The next book I actually listened to on audiobook. It is Are You There, Vodka? It's Me, Chelsea by Chelsea Handler. I had this book for a really long time. I rated it 2 stars, sadly. But I had this book for a really long time on my shelf. Actually so long that when I pulled it off the shelf, it had like cobwebs on it, so like, yeah. It was a fine read. The audiobook was really fast, so it was fine in that aspect. But there were a lot of mentions of like racism and just things that I can't really get behind, you know? So that's why I gave it 2 stars. And then I actually donated it to my library because I was like, I don't really want this book in my collection, so bye! Moving on to my first 5-star this month, it is Let Me Hear a Rhyme by Tiffany D. Jackson. As I said, 5 stars. I did recommend this in my last video of my book recommendations. And so, this book is about a group of friends, specifically 2 guys who is friends with this guy named Steph, and Steph ends up getting killed and shot and killed, in that order. And they come together with his sister and decide to release his music. And then it kind of takes off, and he's like a great rapper, but no one knows that he's deceased. So yeah, it's all about that, and the book follows each of the main characters in their perspective. So since there's 3 of them, that was kind of a lot and a little bit confusing in the beginning, but I ended up liking it because you get to know what each person is thinking. Oh, also another thing I didn't mention, this book is set in Brooklyn in 1998, so it's very atmospheric. So I definitely liked it in that aspect as well. The next book I listened to on audiobook as well, and it is Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. If I didn't listen to audiobooks, I wouldn't have known if it was Gillian or Gillian, and it's Gillian, so in case any of you were questioning it as well. I gave this book 4 stars. I thought it was really good. It's a mystery thriller, so it kept me on my toes. Quick synopsis. This book is about a woman, a journalist, who her boss sends her back to her hometown to investigate what's going on because there was a recent murder, and then a year before there was another murder of 2 young girls that were the same age. And so she gets sent back to her town to figure out what's going on. I won't say much more than that. I did have a few problems with this book, but I still gave it a 4.5 because I enjoyed myself while I was reading it. I felt like I was reading a thriller, like I thought it was good. There was, I mean, this could be a little bit of a spoiler, but there was like some incest-esque type things, like not full-on incest, but like there was some weird family stuff happening that I was uncomfortable with, to say the least. And it only happened in one scene, and then it wasn't really discussed later on, so I thought that was kind of weird. But especially if you haven't read any other like mystery thriller books, I mean, I would recommend this book. I thought it was pretty good. Just be aware of that. Also, there's like self-harm. A lot of mention of self-harm, which I was not really expecting it going into it, but I guess I should have because the cover has like a razor blade on it. Yeah, so a lot of self-harm and like drinking, drugs, incest stuff. Trigger warnings for all of those. The next book I listened to on audiobook as well, and it was Middlegame by Shauna McGuire. I rated this 4.5 stars, and guys, I'm sorry, but I don't have like a summary for this book because it was so weird. Like, that's why I gave it 4.5 stars, because I was like, what is like, I feel like I would have given it 5 stars if I knew what was happening, but also I don't know if I would have liked it the same if I fully knew what was happening. It would go back between certain like time frames and years, and that was a little bit confusing for me listening to it on audiobook, but I'm going to try my best. So this book follows Roger and Dodger, twins, and they were made in a lab. They don't live near each other. One lives like on the East Coast, one lives on the West Coast, and they can talk to each other inside their heads, and they become friends, and it's just like about their lifetime up until a certain point. Yeah, I can't really give you, I would just recommend, just look it up if you don't know what it's about. And yeah, I gave it 4.5 stars. The next book that I read this month, I gave 5 stars. It is Gemina by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This one I liked so much more than Illuminae. I gave Illuminae 4 stars back in March, I want to say March or April. Yeah, if you guys read Illuminae and you didn't really like it because you didn't know what was going on, I would definitely tell you to read Gemina, because I feel like Gemina made so much more sense to me. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. So, in case you haven't read Illuminae, it follows in a dossier format this couple, the day that their planet gets blown up and the day that they actually break up, so it's a little awkward. And then Gemina follows new characters as they are on this jump station in space. It's a sci-fi book, and in this one we have the bad guys are taking over the jump station, so I really liked that one a lot more than Illuminae. The next book that I picked up this month, I read via ebook, and it is Ladykiller Volume 1 by Joelle Jones. I think this book was okay. It was fun to pass the time, but it wasn't anything special. As soon as I finished it, I wasn't really thinking about it anymore. So this book follows a 1950s, I think it's 1950s, housewife, and she's also a hit woman, however you want to say it. So I thought that was an interesting aspect. I liked the art. It was very gory. So if you don't like gore or blood or stuff, don't read this book. Don't do that to yourself. Besides that, I thought it was fine. It did kind of end weirdly, which, I mean, it is a volume 1, but still, I thought the ending was a little abrupt and not what I was expecting. It was still fine, though. The next book I got through my library this month, and it was Aquaporin Cove, I think is how you pronounce it, by Katie O'Neill. I rated this book 5 stars. It was so cute. This is the same author of the Tea Dragon Society. I haven't read that book. I actually went to the library looking for the Tea Dragon Society, but they didn't have it, so I grabbed this one instead. And I was not disappointed, y'all. So, first of all, the artwork is gorgeous. The message was so great. It was basically that we need to like take care of our planet and not take more than we need. And I feel like it was the perfect length for a graphic novel. It was like, I want to say like 90 pages, but they went by fast. So yeah, I think it had good flow, good story. I would definitely recommend this if you haven't read it yet. The next book that I picked up this month was The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. And if you watched my wrap-up last month, you know that I read With the Fire on High, and it was my new favorite book. Of course I read this book, and then there's like some controversies about it, but I did end up rating this book 4.5 stars. I feel like I might try, because I listened to it on audiobook, I think I'm going to try and listen or read it physically and see if that makes me bump it up to a 5. But there was just something missing from me. I don't know. Maybe because I read With the Fire on High, I was expecting it to be a 5-star read. I still really enjoyed it though. So this book is written in verse, and it follows this girl named Xiomara, and she's just dealing with a lot. She's dealing with going to school, having her first love, like lust versus her religion and Christianity and stuff like that, and being a twin. There's a lot going on. Also, there's some LGBT rep in this book, so there's that. I would recommend this book if you haven't picked it up, especially if you want to get into like poetry and verse. I think I would recommend this book. The next book I listened to an audiobook as well. It was a lot of audiobooks this month, so that was great. Dark Places by Gillian Flynn again. I liked this one as well. This one I gave 4 stars. I think I liked them about equally. I was more intrigued by the storyline of Dark Places, which follows a woman like 25 years after her 2 sisters and mother are killed, and then her brother was actually convicted of the crime. And then there's like a true crime group who says that her brother didn't do it, and so they're trying to get him free. And then her sister, or the main character, I mean, she like never really did her own research on the crime. So now she's like going back and finding evidence and like seeing her brother for the first time while he's in jail. So there's a lot going on. I did like the true crime aspect of this. If I had to pick, I feel like I might have liked Dark Places a tiny bit better because of the true crime and stuff, but there was also a lot of like weird stuff. Also, I feel like I liked the ending of Dark Places a little bit better than Sharp Objects, because the Sharp Objects ending, I kind of had guessed what was going on, and in Dark Objects I only guessed half of the ending, which was exciting, because I was kind of like shocked when we found out the other part of the ending. So there's that. The next book that I picked up from my library this month was Obsidian by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is the 3rd and final book in the Illuminate trilogy. So if you haven't read the other ones, I won't spoil what this one is about, but I did end up giving this 4.5 stars. I like Gemina the best, then Obsidian, then Illuminate. Yeah, and since I already explained what this series is about, I don't think you need a recap. The next book I'm so excited that I got to read this month, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. It was a 5-star book. I knew it would be. I love Evelyn. I loved this story. I even tabbed it. There was a lot of stuff going on. Yeah. I love this book. It's definitely a new favorite. Not much I can add because like everyone talks about this book, so. The next book I picked up, I read in one day. It was a 4-star book, and it is The Secret of the Old Clock by Carolyn Keene. Oh, Nancy Drew and The Secret of the Old Clock by Carolyn Keene. Yeah, I talked about this in my May book haul, I think. Yeah. I have loved Nancy Drew since I was a child. I played the video games. I have the movie. I read the books when I was younger. And now I kind of want to get back into them because I've been seeing them at my like local Goodwills a lot. So now I can just pick them up. And they were such like short reads. I was like, I really enjoyed that. There's also some pictures, if I can find one for you. Which I didn't know these books had pictures. So that was great. I don't really have much else to say about this besides Nancy Drew is a queen. So the next book that I read this month is going to be a little maybe controversial depending on if you guys watch this show or not, but I enjoyed this book, and it is I Didn't Come Here to Make Friends by Courtney Robertson. Let me see if... So this is a story, memoir by Courtney Robertson, who was on The Bachelor, and she was actually the villain of her season, which I didn't watch that season, but I've had this book for like a couple years now, and I love The Bachelor. I don't even care. Like, I just think it's like dumb TV, and it's great, and I love it. Yeah, so if people don't watch The Bachelor, they're probably gonna be like, why'd you read that? I did give it 4 stars because I thought it was really interesting. Most of the book covers her while she's on The Bachelor and like behind the scenes type of things that she learned, like secrets, which I like that. I like to know that, because like obviously it's real, but it's very like dramatized, and they cut things to make it look like people are fighting when really they're not. Like they just make it look that way, you know what I mean? If you are into the Bachelor franchise like I am, I would recommend this book, especially if you watched her season. I wonder what, because like I knew she was the villain, but I hadn't seen her, so I didn't have any like ill will towards her or anything. And I read her book, and like she said things that like were wrong, and I was like, girl, that's bad. But at the same time, like, I liked her. I thought it was a good book. So I'm curious to know that if someone has watched this season and then reads this book, if they like still don't like her or what. So the last and final book that I read this month, I read for the Taylor Jenkins Riedalong, hosted by my 3 favorite people. I'll just link their channels down below so I can move on. But it is Forever Interrupted by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I gave this 3 stars. After reading, I read Daisy Jones back in March, and then read Evelyn Hugo, gave both those 5 stars, and then reading this one I was kind of disappointed. I guess I shouldn't have been, because it's her first book, so like people learn, and like as they write more, become better writers and stuff. I just didn't really like this book. I didn't like the premise of it, so that was, I don't know why I paid for this book. Yeah, so this book follows a girl who, she has like a whirlwind relationship with this guy, and after 6 months of knowing him, they get married, and then 9 days after getting married, he gets hit by a truck. So rest in peace. So the book follows her in her grief period with meeting his mom and like dealing with that with her, and then it also follows her in the past while she's like falling in love with this guy and like their relationship together and stuff and so on. I'm not big on romance, so that already was like, and then I'm not big on grief and crime. I mean, I'm fine about crime, but I don't want to read like a sad book, so that was another you know, yeah. Also, I think if I hadn't read this for the TGR read-along, I would have DNF'd it, probably. Also, if Taylor Jenkins Reid didn't write it, I wouldn't have picked it up, and I wouldn't have given it 3 stars, but since I know what she's capable of, I kind of was like, give you a boost, girl. So, this was the last book that I finished in the month of June. Then, for the book that I DNF'd, I should have mentioned it at the beginning, but I spaced out. I DNF'd at 50 pages, My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry by Frederick Backman. I had this book for over a year, and then I was gonna buddy read it with my mom. Yeah, both of us got like to page 50 and we were like, this is not good. I'm sorry if you like this book. I'm sorry if it's like your favorite book ever, but it's not good. There was just too much going on. It like was told in third person, but the way it was written made it seem like it should be in first person. It just was not my kind of book. And I'm kind of disappointed because I knew this book was really popular and I'd heard a lot about it, but at the same time, I really want to read Beartown by Frederick Backman, and I've heard so many good things about that, so I was expecting the writing to be really good, and that was a part of the reason that I DNF'd it, because the writing was like, I'm sorry, Frederick. So there are all the books that I read in June. I'll hold them up for you guys. There's like half of them. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I guess I'll see you next time. Bye!